Today we're going to learn about metric conversion, and we're going to use a little device called the metric ladder to help us learn all about how to convert from one prefix to another. So we're going to get a little backgrounder first, and then we'll move into the metric ladder and how to use that, and then we'll practice converting from one to the other. So today's learning goal, and on your worksheet for today you can fill this out. You'll fill in the blanks here. So it says today I am converting between metric units using the metric ladder so that you can convert between any metric units. I'll know I've got it, you'll know you understand this, when you can actually convert between any metric units with the ladder on your own. So what are the three most common measurements? Let's get some background on this first. So the three most common measurements, especially in science, are length, mass, and volume. And we have units that we use with these particular measurements. For length, it's the meter, and for mass, it would be the gram, and for volume, it would be the liter. So what tools did scientists use in order to measure these three units? Well, for the meter, they use a ruler or a meter stick most often. For the gram, we use a scale, or we got this really fancy one called a triple beam balance, a TBB. So you'll probably see some video on those so that you are familiar with how to use them. So if you ever go to college and they say, all right, go get a triple beam balance from the shelf and bring it over to do some weights, you'll know what a triple beam balance is. All right, now for the liter, we use graduated cylinders. Graduated means that there are markings on the side of the cylinder so that you can measure how much liquid or powder or whatever you have inside your cylinder. All right. So what tool will you use to convert from one metric unit to another? Well, you'll be using what we call the metric ladder. It's very fancy. You're gonna love it. Why is it important to use one universal system for measurement? This is the last part of our backgrounder. Well, we've talked about that for about 2 days this week. It's important because it reduces the confusion of using different systems, and it also makes it easy to compare measurements taken by different people. Eliminate that confusion. All right. So step one in converting from a unit to a unit is to understand that every single number ends with a decimal point, or at least has a decimal point. So if you have a number like 100, you normally don't write in a decimal, but we actually can just assume that a decimal always goes there. And of course that means it's 0.0, 100.0. So we don't have to write all that. We can just write 100 and everybody knows what that is. But technically it's 100.0. So every number actually has a decimal at the end of it. We just don't write it or type it all the time. So here is our metric ladder. You gotta love it. So what I want you to do to make this easy is get yourself some different colored buttons, or maybe some M&Ms if you have them, or Skittles. And if you can get a green and a red, that would be the most ideal colors to use, because green means go and red means stop, right? Or green could mean start and red could mean stop, and that's how we're going to use them today. So what I want you to do, we're going to convert first the 100. So on your worksheet you have 100, and they're asking you to convert it from one thing to another. So you're going to take your Skittles or your M&Ms or whatever you got. I'm just going to go with Skittles. Assume that's what you have. You're going to place both your green and your red Skittles on the centimeter or the centi square. So notice in the middle right here we have the meter, the gram, and the liter. Of course, I draw horrible circles. So those are what we call the base units. The base units. Meter, gram, liter. Now, remember, we talked about on a previous slide that the three major measurements are volume, length, and I'm doing this in a different order. So it's length, mass, and volume. So we've got our meter, gram, and our liter. Okay? So those are the words that we're going to use, but we're going to insert a different prefix depending on the amount of that volume we have to measure. So if we're measuring very small parts, we're going to go down here with the milli. So that'd be like millimeter. Or if we're measuring very large areas or lengths, we would go with kilometer. Okay, so kilo becomes the prefix to the word meter. So we often say that kilometer, but it's like kilometer. But kilometer is similar to a mile, whereas millimeter is equivalent to like 1/8 of an inch. So you can measure very small with the milli and very large lengths with the kilo. Just prefix that to the word meter. You do the same with gram, kilogram, milligram, kiloliter, milliliter. So they all work the same. So back to our problem of trying to convert 100 centimeters to, I believe, kilometers, I think we're moving to. Let's see how this goes. Let me erase this. And before we get there, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. One of the easiest ways to remember the order of the prefixes is to use a mnemonic device. And here's one that I've used in the past with students, and they seem to like it. It goes like this: King Henry died drinking chocolate milk. Now the dash in the middle, that's our base unit. But these letters help us remember that's kilo. And this has got to be hecto. So this would be deca. And then we have our base unit. And then deci, the other D. And then centa. And of course, milla. Okay, so King Henry died drinking chocolate milk. Kilo, hecto, deca, deca, centa, milla. All right, so I was wrong. We're not going to kilos. We're going just to the base unit. So centimeter to meter. So to convert 100, we're going to move our skittle, our red skittle, from the start box, which is centi. We're starting with centi, and we're trying to convert to our base unit. So we're going to move the red skittle up to our base unit, right here, because that's going to help us, because when we're converting, we're simply going to move our decimal place. And this little exercise of using the skittles helps us learn how many decimal points we need to go. So if we started here on centi, we're going to go one step. So we're going to move the decimal place one position, and then a second position, because we went from the start right here to the stop right here. So that was 2 jumps to our base unit. So we're going, because we went this direction, which is kind of like to the left, that means we're going to move our decimal point to the left as well. So the 2 jumps, our original decimal point was right here, and it's going to jump 2 spaces, and now our decimal point is here. So that means our answer is 1 meter. So 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. Okay, so it's no longer 100, it's now 1. Okay, so that's how we use the metric ladder. So now I want you to try it with our guided practice. So if we have 10 milliliters, we want to convert that to centiliters. So we're going to add the decimal point. Put our decimal point in there. It's not written in, so we're going to write it in. And then we're going to place both of our Skittles on our starting point, which is the M. King Henry died drinking chocolate milk, so that's the last one. So we added our decimal point. Now we put both of our Skittles on the milli box. Then we move the red to the result prefix that we want, which in this case is centi. So we move it there. That means we've moved our decimal place one position to the left. One position to the left. Left. So that means we're going to move our decimal one position from, it was 10 before, and we're going to convert it over to here. That makes it a 1. So our final answer is 10 milliliters is equal to 1 centiliter. So it's the same amount. The amounts aren't changing. It's just the unit by which we're measuring changed. All right, here's our second guided practice problem. We want to convert 1,000 kilograms into grams. So we're going to add our decimal point to our starting point right there. Then we're going to put, because we're starting with kilo, we're going to put both our Skittles on the kilo box. Then we're going to move our red Skittle. Whoop. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, 3. 3. So it moves, our red Skittle moves to our base unit. So that's 3 jumps, as you can see. And it's moving now, this time, to the right. It's moving this direction. So we're going to use this over here. We're going to move our decimal place the same direction that we moved on our metric ladder. See why this ladder is so cool? Move it to the right 3 spaces. That means it goes from 1, 2, 3. So we're going to have to actually add zeros that aren't there in front of our decimal place. So we have to add zeros. So our answer is 1,000 kilograms is equal to 1 million grams. Okay, 1 million grams. Practice problem number 3, we're going from centimeters to millimeters. So we're going to start with 100 and put our decimal place in. Notice it right here. And we're going to place both of our Skittles on our starting point, which is CM. And then we're going to count the number of jumps we made, which in this case is only going to be 1. It's going from centimeters to millimeters. And King Henry died drinking chocolate milk, so that's 1 place. 1, 2. So we went in this direction, which points to the right. So we're going to have to move our decimal place to the right to give us our final answer. So it started at 100 centimeters, and then we had to move our decimal place 1 position and add in a 0 in order to fill in the position that we jumped. So our final answer is 100 centimeters equals 1,000 millimeters. So convert. Okay, so here's number 4, where we want to convert from 1 milliliter to hectoliters. So using your metric ladder, you should go K, H, D, deca, our base units, D again for deci, centa, and milli. So we're going from here, so we're going to put our Skittles on here, green and red, And we're going to move our red skittle up to H. Right, because here's H. So that's what we're converting to. And so we go. 1, 2, 3, base units count, 4, 5. So we moved our skittle 5 places to the left. So we know our direction and our number of jumps. So we're starting out with 1.0. We're going to make 5 jumps, which we just said. The direction that we jumped was to the left. So now if we write a 1 up here and put a point, we got to go 5 places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what you'll notice is, remember I said in the previous one that I just add zeros to the low points, which is great. I can do that, that, that. But this first jump already has a number in it, so I don't have to add a 0. So I'm not adding 5 zeros because the 1 is already to the left of the decimal point. So the decimal point has to pass it first. So it stays. We don't change anything. We don't add a 0 for it. The 1 is already there. But the rest of our jumps, there's no zeros there for, so we have to fill those in. So that gives us, that means our decimal place is now over here. So if you look at step 6, it'll show you the answer, which is 1 milliliter equals 0.00001 hectoliters. So that's tens, 100s, thousands, 100,000s, millions, I think. 1 millionth of a hectoliter. 1 millionth or something like that. A lot of zeros. Okay, but that's how we convert it. Okay, I want to have you do some on your own. If you have questions, you can send me a Schoology message and I will try to get back to you. Stay focused and complete your work. So there are 9 conversions for you to do. Start with row M, so those are all going to be meters, measuring length. Work your way across, and once you've finished row M, you want to get it checked to earn a badge. Of course, we're not in class, so we can't do that. But I will check them afterwards, after you do all 3 rows, and you'll get a badge if you've done well on all 9. Okay? That's it.